I sort of do feel the intuitive force of the argument in a way, but I suppose just in a way, just to repeat my kind of Humean position. When you say there must be something, there must be a first cause, I can understand that in the sense that everything subsequently has a cause. So 10 is caused by 9 is caused by 8, so 1 must be caused by something. But all we've been given so far is that the cause must be something on the analogy with 9 causing 10. But it can't be the case that the cause is on the analogy with 9 causing 10, because that, as you just said, won't do the job. So then, we have no reason to think that there's a cause prior to the first cause, on analogy to there being a cause prior to the 10th domino.
Yeah. Sorry, Derek, I would like to just take that thought you're raising and see if I could possibly address it, and maybe we can have a dialogue. Now, the analogy of dominoes is about a chain. And I completely appreciate that domino n plus 10, n plus 9, it goes back, I understand that. But the point we're making is that if we get to the very first domino, and whatever has to move that domino, as our audience member made the point eloquently, has to be exactly the same type of thing, limited in the same way, then in fact, we haven't got to a beginning. We haven't got to the first domino. If we do get to the very first thing, because the universe can't always have existed, then we come into a very difficult question, I think, for atheists, which is, what is it that could have started that chain that is unlikely, that doesn't have the same limitations, and there's no reason, and I think it's very important I say this clearly, there's no reason why that cause has to be the same type of cause as the 9th domino, pushing the 10th domino. It does have to be a cause, that's its only connection. But the point here is that that domino, the very first one, can't be pushed by another domino. The limited thing cannot be pushed by another limited thing. It cannot be caused by a limited thing, because limited things don't bring other things into existence. It's a factor of its limitation. And there's nothing unlimited in this reality. There's nothing that can sustain itself, create itself. All we have are things that need a cause. They had a beginning, they didn't make themselves, they're not unlimited, they're not infinite, they're not eternal, and then our rational process. And I remind you about the debate title tonight, Rational Proof. And this side here, we are trying hard not to be distracted.
But trick by Derek.
We're trying hard to lay a foundation that is rational and stick to it. So I ask, if there is anything wrong with the foundation that we've set, let's examine the foundation. If we've applied it incorrectly, then let's discuss the application. But please, let us not accept the foundation of rational thought, accept its application, and then say, but we don't like the answer. The discussion tonight, is there rational proof? Yes, there is. Have we presented it? Yes, we have. Have we applied it? Yes, we have. The discussion now, if you accept the foundation and the application, that's the answer. If you disagree with the foundation, if you disagree with the application, please come forward. Please. Let's discuss that. But let's not assume that we've come to the same point. And I think that's the difficulty here tonight. If we think we've got to a point where we've made that foundation and applied it well, then there's going to be a problem when we think we're on the same page.
It's directly at that. So I think it's probably pretty clear to everyone in the room that we've gone back and forwards to there's a first point, or what about before? Well, that was the first point. We've done that, and that is something that's been going on for hundreds of years. I'd like to raise the idea that it's very much human nature to want to say, well, things must have a beginning, or we must understand things. And what I'd like to say is, we have at many points in human history had a hypothesis for how things are working and been wrong. In fact, all through human history. In fact, almost probably everything we're thinking right now is wrong. And I would propose that there is nothing wrong with that. And that not knowing is very much fine. And that sometimes it's scary, but if you are brave and you say, okay, I don't know what's going on, but hell, I'm just going to live my life. That's fine. But to say, actually, I'm not gonna be brave, I'm going to say, well, tell you what, I know what's going on. I know what's going on because someone over 1,000 years ago told me what's going on. I'm not going to listen to someone on one continent, I'm not going to listen to someone from the other side of the world. I just know, because there's a book that says it. I find that absolutely bizarre. And I'd like to propose to you that, sticking to your human senses, when there is no Apple analogy for what the movements of an electron are, things just aren't that simple. Relying on your human senses just isn't good enough for these kind of things. Therefore, it's fine not to know.
Thank you. It was an eloquent point, well made. And I'd like to address it, and I'd like you to come back on it so we can have a real discussion. The first is, it's okay to say we don't know. Fair enough, no problems. The fact that we have been wrong throughout human history, throughout science, myriad times, absolutely. Now, I'm going to make a distinction here between two things. One where I agree with you on that point, and one where I don't. So let me make that very clear. I'm going to make a distinction. First of all, when it comes to scientific hypotheses, of course, there's a problem. Look at Stephen Hawking. He talks about Planck time, and he says, obviously, that there's a period before one Planck time. And that period we don't understand. And God bless him, he's a sharp guy. But then he says, but this is imaginary time. And I think that's an example that you've raised, an example of what you're raising of someone wrong. There's no way that I'm going to accept, I don't care how smart he is, imaginary time. It's not working. There are many, many, many people who've got it wrong. But when it comes to the thing that I cannot accept, it's irrational thinking. When you throw away your memory, your experience, how you've lived and how you understand life, and say, no, I'm going to throw that away. When you become irrational, when you become unstable, when you become demented, when you turn into a zombie, that part I don't accept. So let me give you an example of what I mean, and that's in no way attacking anyone. If I was to say, I'm going to now walk up the steps towards the exit. Now, using the information that I hold, these are steps. There should be no problems with me being able to walk up these steps. But what if suddenly all of my confidence fades and I feel that maybe this isn't a step, this is a trap. There's a snake here. They're coming to get me. And suddenly, I abandon all information that I hold, all rationality. That's not true. That's not right. When it comes to scientific hypotheses, of course we can be wrong, but we cannot throw away our rationality. And that, I think, is the problem here. When we say that something had a beginning and did not make itself, our rationality forces us. We're hardwired to think in these phrases, in these terms, in this context. Something made it. And to say, I don't want to accept something made it. I don't like the idea that someone will tell me in a book how to live, who I can make love to, what I can eat. That feeling is the emotion that Muhammad Omar was saying, that we should not allow to cloud our thinking. Whether that is bitter, whether that is something that we enjoy, whether that suits us, is irrelevant. Our rationality, and remember tonight's debate title, Rational Proof. Rational proof. Do you have anything to say other than the fact that it's created when you hear that something had a beginning and didn't make itself? And whether it's this, or whether it's the very first thing in this reality, it was made. Because it didn't make itself. It cannot make itself.
Can you define
That's
creation? Can you define creation? Have you understood creation?
Can we define creation?
Yes, please.
Do you remember when I was talking about this pizza? And Derek made the point about how there could be an unlimited creator and unlimited pizza. I used the example of the pizza to say something in this reality could not be unlimited. And the reason why I want to say that is because then it forces it to become, in every sense of the word, inherently limited, dependent, contingent. It needs things. It has a beginning or an end or both. Has an edge, has boundaries, has something it cannot exceed, obstacles it cannot beat. It needs sustenance. It needs maintenance. So as an example, an old example I use. This bottle, did it create itself? Anyone?
No.
Why?
It's a made object.
Made object. There's many reasons why we can say. But this bottle's made of plastic. Could this bottle have come into existence before plastic exists?
No.
So therefore it requires something before it exists. This is what we mean. When you start to go backwards through a chain of dependencies, you come back. This is why we say about the domino. You go all the way back to something at the beginning. That's what we're saying. The bottle couldn't have made itself. Plastic. Can plastic come into existence by itself? Plastic is made of oil. So there needs to be something that makes that. Can you see that there's a continual chain going back? What we're saying to you, when it comes to what is created, is that something did not make itself. And here we make a point. Can you think of something?
Yes.
Can you think of something which creates itself?
Spontaneous generation.
Yes.
And then here, what we're saying to you is that things require something to exist before it came into existence.
So
And
technically
therefore
there
didn't
is a
create
chance
itself.
that a bottle would...
Yes, of course there is.
Technically there is.
And that's rational. I call this free catch.
This is
Round of
how
applause. Sorry, no, you were saying the bottle could come into existence by
this is
itself.
how they called miracles in the past when things combusted, but actually it was just, arrangements.
Yeah, it's a chance of that. It's just
Okay, because we've got a limited time to any questions, could any questions addressing any of these bottles, could we have them answered now? So could we just have them all together and hopefully the speakers will address them, if not, we have a limited time. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to say I think it's a bit of a pity that the panel is so polarized, because I think there really should be someone here who does believe in a God but does not believe that there is a rational proof for it, or for God. The other thing, so I would like to ask you, while I agree with your conclusion, I would contest that it constitutes a proof. I find that the idea that no God exists absurd. But there is, like a couple of thousand years ago, when people saw lightning, like Zeus, whatever, they could not imagine anything else. Now you're saying for the existence of the universe, you cannot, you proposed 4 explanations, and you said you cannot think of any others. And therefore, the only one of them that made sense to you has to be the right one. I think this argument is flawed because it does not address the possibility that there might be explanations that you cannot think of, as was the case with lightning. So I would argue that your conclusion, while I agree with it, is essentially an emotional one. This is a conclusion that works within the rational framework. It doesn't have to be the only one, but you want it to be true, so you accept it.
It's for the atheist side.
Is it just this sort of argument, or is it?
Yeah, it's about the domino effect. The logical, God created logic, so you using logic to explain God. God is above logic. To use arguments like logic to explain God, I think is irrelevant. It won't prove the point. To say that because God doesn't apply to logic, so he won't have a start or an end, he won't have space or time. So I don't think you can ever, by rational thinking, say that God doesn't exist or God is.
My point is an actual before we start. Yes, you.